I'm here to talk to you about hacking air traffic control systems. Yes, this is what I do for fun. So, who am I? By day, I'm a pen tester for a bank in Canada. So, yes, my job description is I break into banks for a living. I've written some books. I've gone all around the world training and teaching people this stuff. Personally, I am a hacker. I'm very proud to say that I am. My site's renderlab.net, a member of a few different groups. Been known as a notorious Canadian hacker for a very long time. I've been to every DEF CON since DEF CON 7, which was in '99. So I've been to more DEF CONs than some of you are old, so this is kind of weird. I have a black badge from DEF CON 12, so free admission for the rest of the life. But despite the black hat, when they're saying all the bad guys and stuff wear black hats, I'm a white hat by trade. I'm a good guy, but black hat by badge. So I'm often asked, why do I have a monkey? This is Murdoch. He's my traveling buddy. He is really fun to have on a plane. Gets into mischief with me, and it's just a really good excuse to have some fun. So he's on Twitter, Murdoch_monkey. I highly suggest you follow him. I try to keep it mostly family friendly. So hackers tend to look at the world differently. We see things that other people miss. We see stuff that they don't want to see. They don't want to know that there's a problem. We understand problems and how big they are and what they affect. And I love using the word muggles. There's just other people that just don't understand our world. We have a responsibility with this in order to help make the world a better place. Here's basically a story of how I found vulnerabilities in air traffic control systems and how I tried to make things better and actually succeeded. So, has anybody used any of those Planefinder websites? Planefinder.net, radar control, a few hands. Okay. So, most of them do about the same thing. They show you a almost real-time visualization of the planes that are in the air at any time. You can search them by their cities, an airline, by a specific aircraft. Lots of really interesting information. So, and allow for some really pretty maps. Here's Las Vegas as of yesterday. You can see just the sheer amount of planes that are in the air at the time. And you can do really pretty visualizations. This is using air traffic control data, the same kind that they use to power these sites. It's just showing all of the air traffic. You can see all the planes coming across the Atlantic into Europe. I mean, this is just in one day. That shows you how complex, how many planes are flying at any given time. I find it absolutely fascinating that any of it works. It's a very, very big system. Oops. So I wondered how these sites worked. I got bored one day, and when I get bored, bad things happen. Where is this data coming from? Who's providing it? What can we do with it? In a nutshell, it's a protocol called ADSB, which I'll get into in a second. There's networks of users, I'm one of them, that have a little base station that's big antenna, that listens to broadcasts from these planes and feeds it to these websites. Got people doing this all over the world to share all this information. It's kind of neat. So I was looking into this, and the hacker part of my brain started taking over. It's like, there's some weird things going on here I want to know more about. And what I found has been keeping me awake at night for 5 years. So ADSB, Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast. Basically, the planes are now being equipped with GPS, so they know where they are, and they're broadcasting that, sending it out in all directions, to air traffic control. It used to be that, with the radar, the big spinning dish, they would send out a signal to the plane, and it would bounce back. It wasn't very exact. With the plane using GPS, it knows exactly where it is. It's much more exact. The amount of information that's in these signals is aircraft ID, altitude, its specific position, where it's headed, the speed, a lot more information than was ever available before. This is really useful because suddenly over places like Gulf of Mexico, where you don't have an old radar station or anything like that, you actually now know exactly where a plane is, rather than it's somewhere over the water, which is not always the most exact. What this allows is for planes to be closer together because they know exactly where they are. They don't have to have as much room apart for safety. This protocol comes in two forms, ADSB out and ADSB in. Out means out from the aircraft. It's being sent out to air traffic control. It's automatic, no interaction with air traffic control needs to happen. It's dependent on GPS, broadcast as I said. And yeah, so big air traffic control scopes you always see in movies and stuff like that are now using this data to put the planes on the map, much like these websites. ADSB in is a new feature that allows planes to basically talk to each other. So two planes in the same area can say, hey, I'm over here, what's your location? Okay, your location's there. I can now put it on a map in the cockpit of the plane, which they couldn't before. And now, without air traffic control, pilots can now make sure that they're safely separated and all sorts of features. Basically allows them to know more of what's going on around them. It's supposed to make things safer. Really simplified diagram, which you can see ADSB in, the two planes talking to each other, ADSB out, planes down to air traffic control, all getting their location from GPS. The really scary thing that I found out about this was the protocol, this ADSB, is unencrypted and unauthenticated. What that means is, as a hacker, those are two words you never want to use in anything really important. Unencrypted means anyone can read it. There's no code, no secret keys or anything like that. Anybody can read this. And it's unauthenticated, meaning I can't tell if it's actually the plane sending it or someone else, faking that message. That's kind of scary. You can use, like the little $20 RTL software-defined radios, $20 USB TV tuner to listen to these things. Started investigating how these things worked, thought, of a whole bunch of different kinds of threats, and suddenly, I can't find evidence that they've fixed any of this. So usually the answers were, well, it's secret, or trust us. Those don't work for me. Previous experience is when those kind of answers come around, it means somebody's hiding something, or for whatever reason, it's something that needs more digging. But when you start looking at the protocol itself, it looks an awful lot like any other kind of network packet. If you've done any sort of visit like the packet capture village or anything, this all starts. It's very similar to any sort of other network. Why does this matter? Well, it's being used all over the world. In North America, it's going to be mandated by 2020 that all planes over a certain size use this. So they're flying overhead right now. This protocol was designed in the late 90s, probably before many of you were born. This was before a lot of the current threats that were out there, before a lot of these considerations for security came around. So they're using something really, really old, but you can't just change out the whole system overnight. This whole deployment they're doing so over 20 years. I fly a lot, and I want to get home safely. I want to make sure these planes are safe, so that's why I have an interest. I'm sure that you do too if you're flying home. So, an obvious threat is just eavesdropping. I can, as I said, I'm running one of those ground stations and feeding these websites. I have access to the raw data. I am looking at the same thing that air traffic controllers are. So, I have very exact data for where planes are at any given time. I can use this for data mining potential. I know it's telling me the kind of plane that it is, who's registered to. I can look that up. I can track things like Donald Trump's plane when he's flying around. I can follow that. Celebrities, executives, knowing who's going where for vacation and stuff like that, could be kind of weird and interesting for people. Really, there's a lot scarier things that are possible that I haven't thought of. So, I don't want bad people to think of them first. Well, what happens if we start sending our own data into the system as if we were a plane? Like I said, it's unauthenticated. There's, so it's a bit of an oversimplification. There's other systems, but what happens if I introduce 50 extra planes and suddenly air traffic control is looking at their scope and wait, there was only 3 planes there a minute ago. Why is there 50 extra that aren't on my schedule? This is a problem. Confusion, how does the system deal with it? I don't know. I can't find any evidence that anyone's tested that. What happens if you introduce slight variations? And you have, say, oh yeah, broadcast the same data as the flight, and then slowly diverge them. What happens then? How does the system decide which is the real one now? You do this during, weird weather, busy holidays, like Thanksgiving is always insane for air travel at the best of times. You start messing with the system, you're going to back things up for a week. There's events like the Olympics where you've got a huge number of people all going one place. Well, if you start disrupting systems there, what's going to happen? Well, I don't know. I don't want to be on one of the flights that finds out. And there's some evidence that air traffic control systems can't handle things like, well, what if there's 2 planes with the same ID number broadcasting? It never expected that. That should never happen. But these systems weren't designed thinking about weird stuff. They were assuming everything was going to be always perfect. As we know, hackers thrive where systems are doing weird stuff, that they aren't perfect. What if we just jam air traffic control outright? Well, yes, you can do things like direction finding, figure out the source of the signal, send guys in a big truck with guns to shut it down, all that stuff, but it's really hard to do that. So do they have at airports a truck capable of doing that? Do they have the equipment? Do they have the knowledge? I don't know. What if you are only doing it for an hour, 30 minutes, and then you go away? Well, they're never going to find you. We target someplace like the Olympics in Rio, and like I said, you can grind all these flights to a halt. But if you do this across a whole bunch of different places, like I said, Thanksgiving, and you hit places like Denver, LA, Atlanta, Chicago, you could make a whole country stop flying. In the plane-to-plane communication, it gets even scarier. Yeah, I'm probably going to go a little bit longer. So if I'm able to inject data into the air traffic control system, that means I can also inject stuff into the plane. I inject stuff that's confusing. Air traffic control says one thing, well, plane's scope says something different. Well, that's going to take time to sort out because they now have to get a voice, talk to the air traffic control, figure out what's going on. There's situations where, they can't see what's below them, but if the system is reporting that there's a flight, coming towards them from below, and they can't look through the floor, something's going to happen. I don't want to be on that flight again. FAA and everybody has always said, "Oh, trust us." There's no chance of that sort of thing happening. I'm like, no, that's not evidence. That's an assertion. Show me. There's things like, since this whole system is based on GPS, what if we jam GPS? For $20 at a website out of China, I can get a GPS jammer. It's into my carry-on bag. Not that I necessarily want to be on the flight. You could do something bigger from the ground. There's lots of ways to do it. It gets scarier when you look at things like GPS spoofing, or you're generating fake signals. What that means is that I can basically tell the plane's GPS it's anywhere I want it to be. So suddenly, all the benefits of having this plane know precisely where it is in the world, you've lost them because you're flying into Las Vegas and now suddenly your plane thinks it's over top of Chicago. That's a problem. a lot of pilots aren't used to flying the old ways with the older instruments. It's not something they practice a lot. Do they know when the system is being messed with? Do they know when there's been maybe a small change in GPS? If you're just a mile or two to the left or the right, you got the difference between making it to the landing strip or side of a mountain. The response from the authorities has always been, trust us. I never trust anyone who just says, trust us. I presented at DEF CON 20 about this information, and really, it was, here's my evidence. I can't prove they've fixed any of this. Please test it yourself and show me scientific method. I wanted to be wrong. I'm flying on these planes. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted to raise awareness. I wanted people to know things were safe. I wanted the FAA and everybody to come out and say, hey, yeah, here's how we've fixed all those things. There's no problems and everything. I would be happy to be wrong. But, it wasn't immediate, but it took some time. But the stories about hackers looking at air traffic control systems made some people worried. And over the next few years, they've started looking into this stuff, and they finally are starting to deal with it. And it's not too soon, because there is actually software sitting on GitHub that allows you to send these ADS-B transmissions with really simple software-defined radios, a couple $100. If you really wanted to do an attack, you need some more equipment, but all the pieces are there. I'm going to skip this video, but basically this is just showing using a flight simulator, and your virtual plane is actually generating ADS-B out data that you can then send to a radio to then be put into the air. So your virtual plane, as far as air traffic control is concerned, is actually flying in the real world. And we're making a difference through this. It's been a few years, but they're now they put together a task force that was looking at these sort of security threats. It took them 2 years after I gave my presentation, but they actually sat down, did a working group, looked at all this stuff. All the threats that they came up with were the same as mine. It's always nice to find out you're not crazy. They've made, security a part of their guidance documents. A whole bunch of new things have come out. The latest is the FAA is now funding a cybersecurity research center. They put, in their latest reauthorization, they put almost $1 million into a place where they can actually sit down and test these things. What that says to me is, you didn't have one before? Yikes. So, hackers putting pressure on an industry like this, even if it's something gigantic like air traffic control, can have an effect. It may take time, it may not be direct, but it can happen. So, ADS-B is going to be mandatory. This is stuff we're all going to have to deal with for a while. Safety engineering is going to equal security engineering. That's been the biggest problem with the aircraft industry. They can figure that if it's safe, it means it's secure. Well, no, it's not. So what you should take out of this is, here's the situation. I saw a problem that others didn't see. I learned all I could, asked questions, talked to other people. Yeah, I tried doing responsible disclosure, but with something like the air traffic control system, there's no phone number to call up to report vulnerabilities. It's too big. But tried reaching out to FAA and other countries. Yeah, they ignored me. Okay, I could have given up, but no. Did my presentation at DEF CON, said, hey, please prove me wrong. Here's my evidence. You got something better? Please show me. They didn't. And I kept asking questions for the next 4 years of saying, show me, prove me wrong. And now they're starting to make changes. And that's a really good thing, because, like I said, a lot of us, myself included, have to fly home. So basically, through curiosity about how these plane finding sites worked, I changed air traffic control for the entire globe. from my couch. Anyone could do these sort of things. It's about being observant, seeing where these problems are, and trying to solve them. You know, be responsible. Anyone could do these kind of awesome things, and hackers are awesome people. So, thank you very much.